What's going on, everybody? It's total takedown time. UFC Singapore, baby. You better be setting those alarm clocks. Waking up at, holy crap, it's like 3 a.m. Eastern time or something insane like that for the prelims to get started. I might make the main card. I will not be awake for those prelims this week. So good luck to you if you are up and active and live betting on the early slate here this week. This is the Total Takedown. We're going back over the card. This time, instead of talking sides, we're talking overs and unders. So hit the like button for me and let's get right on into this bad boy. First fight of the night, you've got Seungwoo Choi. He's taking on Jarno Aarons. The total is 2.5. The over 2.5 plus 100. The under 2.5 is juiced at about minus 120, minus 130. I do kind of like the violence here in this spot. The way Seungwoo Choi fights, it definitely lends itself to violence. The guy's got fast hands. He hits hard. His opponent, though, Jarno Aarons, the big thing with him is that he really doesn't have a whole lot of grappling defense to speak of. It's a real clear path to victory for Seungwoo Choi to come in here, grapple, take this guy down. The problem is you cannot count on him to do that. Seungwoo Choi is one of these fighters who gets in there and bangs. He slugs it out for better, for worse, good, bad, or ugly. He's just going to get in there and throw down. And his last couple of losses have come by finish, except for the split over Joshua Kleebau, where he almost died 3 different separate times in that fight. His chin is probably going. So we might see one of those turn it on its head situations where he goes for the grappling because it's an easy path to victory, and this is a card where he is supposed to be the hometown prospect. He's supposed to come in here and shine in this spot. So I would say violence, but I kind of lean over just because I'm thinking he might go to a more grappling-based style for this fight. I'm going to lean over, not a total I'm playing. Na Liang, on the other hand, comes up next here taking on JJ Aldrich, 2.5 the total. Na moving up a weight class, which is interesting because she is massive in her old weight class. She had a huge size advantage over everybody, but she's not thick. She's one of those string beanie fighters where you got to wonder just how strong they really are, because yes, they're big, but there's not a whole lot of muscle on that frame. How is she going to look up a weight class against someone like JJ Aldrich, who had no problems taking down somebody the caliber of Erin Blanchfield, who's thick like mutton, by the way? So I don't know if she's going to have the pusher around type of advantage she needs at this weight class. What we know about Na Liang, though, is she's a banger. She comes out, kill or be killed in that first round, insane pace, and she dies after 3 minutes if she doesn't get her opponent out of there because she's got no cardio to speak of. Now, the weight class might have something to do with that. Changing weight classes may make her more effective, may allow her to fight longer, but there's a lot of questions in this fight. The fact that they set the total at 2.5 and not 1.5 has me extremely suspicious. We're juiced to under 2.5, minus 175, and I just can't in my right mind lay that kind of a number. This might be the freest money you've ever seen in your life. Na Liang might be the fighter that you can just back up the dump truck at minus 300 on under 2.5 and it's going to cash, so take the discount, put your life savings on it. Maybe that's what this is, but I can't do it. I just can't in good conscience do that because JJ Aldrich is a good wrestler. She's not overly athletic. She does everything right, but nothing extremely well. So if she wants to get on top of this monster of a girl who's dangerous everywhere and sit on her for 15 minutes and grind out a decision, that's what JJ will do. So I'm a little worried about this fight potentially squeezing over for the first time in the UFC for Na, just because of who she's facing. We'll see what happens, but complete stay away from me. We're going to move a little bit quicker on these next couple of totals here. Billy Goff, Yasuaki Yoshida taking on each other here. 1.5 the total, over 1.5 plus 105. Under 1.5 is minus 135. Now, under 1.5s are notoriously tough to bet. They're a hard number for us because that's right along the line of where fights usually tend to end. Getting minus 135 on this one seems like it feels maybe a little trappy, but I like it. You know, Billy Goff is really being brought in here as a bounce back for Yoshida. I know he's maybe the favorite dog of everybody on MMA Twitter these days, but I think Yoshida is I know he's the prospect out of the two here. He really is. Goff is kind of a throwaway. Yoshida is a kid with big power, big excitement in this specific market, and he gets dropped in every single fight. The UFC's trying to make him look good here. Now, what we saw from Yoshida is he can't handle the grappling just yet, or at least he couldn't over a very battle-tested UFC veteran, so Goff is not necessarily that. We could see a finish on either side here. I like the under. It's probably Kinoshita round 1 KO. Next up, Song Kanon takes on Rolando Bedoya, a 2.5 total. And this one is -110 on both sides, which is interesting here. I kind of think under is maybe the play in this spot because we've seen Song Kanon. It looks like that durability is starting to wane. The problem for me here is Rolando Bedoya has an absolute chin on him. This kid took everything Chaos Williams had to offer and went a hard 15 minutes with him. I think that pressure and pace that he puts on will break Song Kanon because it looks like he just doesn't have the durability that he used to. And we know when Song lands, the dude's got power. Song can crack. So even though Bedoya took everything in his last fight, that doesn't necessarily mean he'll absorb a perfect shot in this fight. I lean violence. I'll say under 2.5. Chidi and Jaquani taking on Michal Oleksiejczuk. 1.5 the total. Over is +105. Under is -135. And I could really make an argument either way on this one. The way Oleksiejczuk starts his fights, it's all gas, no brakes. He just lunges in there forward, tries to cause a barn burner of a first round, get his opponents out of there early, and that could work on Chidi. You crowd the kicker, you crash the pocket, you find that chin. But what we've really seen work best against Chidi is the grappling. You wear him out, you tire him out, you drag him to the floor, and then he sometimes will give up the submission if you do that. He doesn't quite have the same issue with strikers. So because he's taking on a guy in Oleksiejczuk who's not going to be as big as him or as physical as him, I don't think it's going to be as much of a problem. And Duraev had that takedown offense that he had to worry about. That kind of slowed him down a little bit. That's not going to be here. Gregory Rodriguez had that grappling threat. That's not going to be there. So I think he's going to feel free to strike. And in this case, I think we get a barn burner of a first round. And whether it's either guy getting clipped or doing the clipping, I can see both guys getting the finish. I lean to Chidi and Jaquani, but under 1.5 at -135. That doesn't sound half bad to me. Toshinori Kazama takes on Garrett Armfield up next in a weird fight here. Total set at 1.5. Over is -180. Under is +140. And, I mean, I lean Garrett Armfield, but this is one of those spots where it's wrestler versus jiu-jitsu, and he's flying halfway across the world. Who knows if that's going to affect him? Kazama looks to be a guy that can be knocked out by cleaner strikers, and I think Garrett Armfield is exactly that. But whenever you get the wrestler versus jiu-jitsu player, most of the time the wrestler tries to stay on top, stay heavy, play it safe, and that could extend minutes here. We could squeeze over this 1.5 very easily if Armfield is in the driver's seat of this fight, getting those takedowns, and then being at his normal weight class in this fight. He might be big enough, strong enough, and have the gas to go a full 15, meaning we actually make it the distance on this kind of a fight. So, sketchy prospect. I'll say over 1.5. I don't like the -180. That's a bit too much here for me. So, I'll lean that way, but probably not going to bet it. Waldo Cortez Acosta takes on Lucas Brzeski up next. We got another 2.5. The over 2.5 -150. The under 2.5 +120. I was kind of hoping we'd get a slightly juiced 1.5 in this spot because I'd be hammering that all day, and that's exactly why we got a 2.5 in this spot instead. Waldo Cortez Acosta has proven himself to be quite durable. However, he's basically just a boxer. He doesn't have a well-rounded MMA game. He can get stuck on bottom, but he's tough down there. He can work up back to his feet. He can absorb punishment. That's not an issue for him. Lucas Brzeski, he's got all the pieces. He's just very low level, and since he popped for USADA, physically speaking, he's not looked anywhere near the same. Now, it does look like he's in much better shape coming into this fight, so maybe he gets a little bit of heat back on those punches, but even then, I'm not sure he hits hard enough to knock out somebody like Waldo Cortez Acosta. I do think we're going to get a full 15 minutes here. If Brzeski is able to mix in some takedowns, mix in some clinch control, if they're both jabbing at range, both guys are tough, both guys are durable, I think we go the full 15. Let's say over 2.5, -150. Junior Tafa takes on Parker Porter up next. King Parker Porter himself returns to the cage. 1.5 the total. Over 1.5. It's a pick 'em. -110. Both sides. Pick your poison here. I think we're going under. So, Junior Tafa, I'm not ready to trust this guy just yet. Anytime someone gets to the UFC with 4 or 5 professional fights, I look to fade them almost immediately. And he did, in fact, drop his UFC debut against Muhammad Usman, which was ugly. It did go a full 15 minutes, but that's because he couldn't get Usman off him. In the last 5 months, all he's done is drill takedown defense, cage clenching, so he's going to be more effective in that this time. Now, the difference is Porter is actually a very dangerous ground fighter. If he gets this guy to the ground, I don't think he's going to have an answer for it. I do think he'll be submitted by Parker Porter if this thing touches the ground. The floor is lava for Tafa this week at UFC Singapore. But, on the other hand, if he's put the right work in, if he can manage to defend those takedowns, Porter's extremely chinny. He gets clipped and dinked and dropped in a lot of his fights. He is now 38 years old, so the durability is not going to get any better. And Braxton Smith was this close, just shaving the chin hairs off of Parker Porter in his last fight. If any one of those lands, we're having a completely different conversation about how this fight looks, because he would have been out stone cold on his back, I promise you. So I think we see violence. I think under 1.5 is the way to go. That is Junior Tafa's best path to victory here in this spot. And then I simply don't think that Junior Tafa can survive with Parker Porter on top of him. That's one I might actually bet. Next up, you've got Aaron Blanchfield taking on Tyler Santos. 2.5 the total, over is -250. Not a lot to talk about here. You've got Santos, who's extremely high-level grappler, good solid BJJ. Yes, she took the back of the then champion Shevchenko and almost had her in a couple rear naked chokes. I don't know that she's going to have that kind of success with Blanchfield, but I could see her being the more physically mauling woman, be able to take Blanchfield down, get those control minutes up. But Blanchfield, on the other hand, she has gotten so much better with her striking. I could actually see her skipping around the cage, landing a jab, landing the 1-2, making her mark on the feet more so than on the ground. And if she can defend those takedowns and keep this fight standing, I think this fight gets extended, because Santos is tough as nails. I don't think Blanchfield's going to knock her out or anything like that. So unless we get another like jumping guillotine, which I wouldn't suggest and don't expect, I think we're probably going to see a full 15-minute fight here. I don't like the -250, but it's probably going over. Rinya Nakamura up next takes on Fernie Garcia. 1.5 the total. Under is -160. Over is +125. So definitely chalked here down to the under for violence here. Nakamura, this guy is just a bat out of hell in the first round. He's extremely explosive, very physical. Fernie Garcia's got a chin on him, though. Now, if Nakamura comes out and decides to put his wrestling pedigree on show, takes this guy down, makes him make a mistake, arm triangle, just all that brute force, muscle, and power, he could probably tap him out early. I actually think the tap out might be a little more live than the knockout, just because Fernie Garcia is extremely durable. This one could squeeze over that 1.5 round mark, because Fernie is who Fernie is. But I'm really expecting Nakamura, and I'm expecting him more than likely early. Giga Chikadze takes on Alex Caceres up next, a 2.5 total. And again, it's pretty juicy on the over here. -210 to the over 2.5. And I do lean that way. I think we're going to get a 15-minute kickboxing match here. Alex Caceres likes to do that flow state striking. Giga Chikadze, he knows how to do that left body kick, but he minds the range very well, moves around, strikes well moving backwards. These guys are going to play chess. I wouldn't be surprised at all if Alex Caceres tries to grapple a little bit here in this fight. And even though Caceres has an absolute brick for a head and he's really tough to get out of there, you don't have that same type of durability on your liver. I wouldn't be shocked if we see the return of the Giga kick on Saturday, because Alex Caceres does have that extremely long torso. It's gonna make it a wide open target for Giga to land, and if he hits the liver, there's nothing you can do. There's no amount of toughness stopping your body from shutting down when your liver gets cracked. So I kind of think there's a chance for Giga to land the knockout, but if he doesn't find that perfect shot on the liver, this thing's going all 15. Anthony Smith takes on Ryan Spann in the rematch nobody asked for here in the co-main event. Total is 1.5, and the under is taking all the money. It's all the way up to -195 now. And kind of like before, that just makes me want to throw up in my mouth a little bit. I don't want to lay 2-1 on an under 1.5, but at the same time, it's Ryan freaking Spann. That's all this guy ever does. That's his only win condition. If it's not under 1.5, he collapses, he quits, he breaks, he loses. His durability is really bad. He can't fight extended. So he's either going to knock out a hobbled and withered Anthony Smith in the first round, or Anthony Smith is going to do exactly what he did last time, and that's stay on him, get in his face, chip away at him, and as soon as he lands something, Spann's legs will wobble and he'll collapse again. So I do think under 1.5 makes sense. Violence all the way, baby. Main event time. Max Holloway takes on Chan Sung Jung, the Korean Zombie. 3.5 is the total. Over 3.5, -145. Under 3.5, +115. And blind bet over 3.5s really has just been printing money in the UFC. Over 3.5s, for whatever reason, when they hang a 3.5, that's the way you go. And I could see that being the case here. Chan Sung Jung did get knocked out against Volkanovski, but it took him all the way deep into round 4 or 5 for him to actually clip him like that. Now, maybe Max wants to make an impression. Maybe Max wants to come out here and prove that he's better than Volk and get it done just a little bit faster. But I also have seen Max play in the cage. I've also seen him teach his opponents how to box in the cage. Like, he's done a lot of stuff like that, where he just has not gone for the kill because he hasn't felt like he needed to, and he's really just having fun out there. We could see some grappling mixed in from the Zombie, because I believe he's done some time over at Fight Ready. Maybe we actually see some groundwork here in this spot. That would be fun, a new wrinkle to the game here, but I'm pretty sure Max Holloway finds the chin at some point. I might sprinkle the rounds 4 and 5 props, because I'd expect that's probably when it's going to take place, but I also could see Max not really going for the kill, respecting a fellow legend who called him out literally because he always wanted to fight Max. Not because it was bad intentions, not because he's looking for the title, but because he respects this guy, and that's how he wants to go out. His last fight in the UFC is going to be against Max Holloway, and Max could let him slide with that, and they could have a little bit more of a sparring match maybe than a death match on Saturday. So I'm saying over 3.5, and I might actually bet that one as well. That's the Total Takedown, folks. We'll see you tomorrow at some point for the Undefeated Post weigh-in show. I think the weigh-ins are actually tonight at like 9 p.m. or something like that. It's going to be weird. So I'll get the Total Takedown for you as early as I can tomorrow. And then don't forget, set your alarm clocks bright and early on Saturday if you're going to wake up for this one. Good luck on all your degenerate action. Let's roll.